All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the McMenamin and Wing Show here on WWDB Talk 860. We've got a fantastic broadcast. We are hosted by Tom Wing of McMenamin and Wing, and our host and our guest for the broadcast is Adam Flager of Flager Law. Tom, how are you, sir?
Great, although I think there's like a mutiny here, and Adam's going to take over my show.
He is taking your show over, but we're not going to say much. You know, those guns over there that you see you got there on your, they're going to prevent it. We're both a little nervous.
They're for decoration.
Yes. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here at the scenic studios of McMenamin and Wing. And so having said that, today we have an awesome, and by the way, shout out to Matt Dietz, okay, who's our producer for the broadcast. He may be in the video right now. I'm not sure. But today's show, very interesting broadcast, the tactics of the insurance companies during personal injury and workers' compensation cases. Okay, very educational area, but definitely things that people need to know. And so I'm going to open up with our host, okay, Tom Wing, and I'll ask him this simple question. Why do so many injured workers and accident victims feel like the insurance company is on their side at first?
So part of the training these adjusters go through is customer service, and they're rated on customer service. You ever called your auto insurance carrier? You got to make a change to your policy. I just had to do it this past week. I got a survey 2 seconds after I changed that policy of, did the person solve your issue? They are rated on how their interaction goes. So even if they're absolutely screwing over that injured worker or that accident victim, they're doing it with a smile, very politely, and that's why.
Adam, if you will, on the personal injury side, when somebody gets in a car accident and decides to call their insurance carrier, next thing you know, it sounds like Aunt Bessie's answering the phone.
Yeah, and there's two ways that can affect you. Sometimes they're calling the insurance company for the other side, the side that caused the accident, and they still are acting like they're your friend and they're trying to sort this all out, and they'll handle everything the right way. And then you can also talk to your own insurance company because they're going to do their investigation as well. And same type of thing. You think that everything's going well and they're just going to try to help you and resolve this issue. And what you don't realize is they're scheming to do just the opposite.
What is the insurance company's primary legal obligation, Adam?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about their obligation to their shareholders, which is to maximize profits. Your claim be damned, basically, and your feelings be damned. So they have certain legal obligations to appropriately and reasonably review claims, adjust claims, and pay on claims. A lot of times that is not done or not done the right way. And so that can lead them down the road to a potential bad faith claim for violating those standards and rules.
Tom, in a workers' compensation case, what is the work comp insurance company? What is their primary obligation?
Protect their insured, which is not the injured worker. And they've actually litigated multiple times through the appeals courts here in Pennsylvania. And it is pretty clear, based on the available statutes that we have now, there is no bad faith for injured workers, which means you're stuck in the workers' comp system and you are stuck with only a potential penalty when an insurer behaves badly.
Having said that, you mentioned a little earlier that, it's customer service. Okay. And, that they get judged, their reps get judged on customer service. You would swear, I've talked to people after they've gotten off the phone with the adjuster, whoever that person, or the person who answers the phone. And the question is they put an adjuster on. Is the adjuster their friend? A lot of people think they are because they treat them like gold.
Yeah, so I think the biggest misconception is that the insurance adjuster is your friend until they're not. I've heard that over and over and over again in my career. I've probably said it. It's really not true. So they're going to be really nice to you because they have to. They don't want to get dinged or get fired. Because first thing you're going to do if an adjuster is nasty to you is talk to their supervisor or pick up the phone and call a lawyer. But if they're nice to you when they're saying, oh, I'm sorry, we can't pay for that hospital bill, or, oh, we can only give you X number of dollars for your totaled vehicle because the photo claim that you put in only shows a scratch on the bumper. And so they'll do it with a smile. They'll be really nice about it. And they'll tell you, well, these are legally only the options you have. And I've had countless instances where an adjuster is actually bordering on giving legal advice to one of my clients while they're trying to tell them what is or is not available to them. And I've had comments on some of my videos where they say, we don't give legal advice, but I see it almost every day.
When somebody's going through this process, when they get in an accident, slip and fall, whatever, personal injury, when should they begin thinking about protecting themselves legally?
Right away. I mean, obviously, if you're at the scene of an accident and you need medical care, you call 911, you get an ambulance, get treatment. And one of the first things you should be doing once you're in a safe, stable position is calling an attorney, because the insurance company does not wait, right? They're sending out people to investigate an accident, a claim. They're getting ready for battle from the jump. And so when people don't do that same thing and protect themselves, you're now giving this 600-pound gorilla a head start. And you're already at a disadvantage because they're so big, because they're so powerful, because they have so much money. And so by delaying that call to an attorney, you end up making really simple mistakes that can be devastating to your case. I had a client recently do this, and she handed over video to the insurance company, and they thought Christmas came early when they got that video. It's horribly damaging to her case. And she thought, well, I'm trying to handle the case myself and I don't need a lawyer. Great. You just cost yourself tens of thousands of dollars by doing that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because my next question to both of you is, what is the biggest mistake people make immediately after an injury? And a work injury. Let's start with a work injury.
Oh, the work injury, usually they try to tough it out. That's the biggest mistake we see.
Yeah.
The second is ignoring what your body is telling you. And that can also go with toughing it out. But it can also be when you go to the doctor, the company doctor, and you're getting your medical care, and they say, oh, let's wait on that x-ray. Let's wait on PT. Let's wait on getting an MRI. And you can't sleep. You can't work. You can't lift anything. You go to open a door, put on your shoes, and you're writhing in pain. And yet the company doctor says, it's probably just a sprain. If you ignore what your body is telling you, or you're trying to tough it out, those would be probably the two biggest mistakes we see.
In a personal injury, auto accident,
we see that same issue with people that don't want to get the treatment right away. And the problem with that is then you first go to get treatment 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 2 months later. I've seen 3 months later. And now you have to tell the insurance company, yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. I want to get a lot of money for my case, but it wasn't bad enough for me to treat for those first few weeks, that first month, those first 2 months. And so it's a lot harder to make that claim, and your insurance company is going to battle you a lot more on that because you thought, yeah, I'll get better. If you're 15 years old, your body magically heals. Everyone else needs a little bit of help. And so get that help, because those are the types of things also from a personal standpoint. These are injuries that could have gotten better had you gotten the treatment a lot sooner. And because you didn't, it turns into a chronic medical issue, and that could have been prevented.
And one of the things that I think is important to talk about, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. So when you're doing it, you're thinking, oh, I'm just toughing it out. I know that it hurts. I know that what I'm feeling is real. When we're trying to present this to a judge or a jury 2 years from now, when you're cross-examined on your giant gap in initial treatment of 3 months, it's going to be painted to a jury as, well, if you were catastrophically injured and eating through a tube and needed, help breathing, you would have gone to the doctor right away, wouldn't you? And they're going to paint it step by step, question by question of, well, if it was really that bad, you would have seen someone. We wouldn't have to just take your word for it that it hurt, wouldn't we? And it makes it very difficult to get somebody appropriately compensated. And we're not over here saying, oh, we're trying to maximize every dollar and every nonsense claim that really shouldn't be a claim. These are legitimate cases with hardworking people who are trying to do the right thing and not, milk the system, so to speak.
And so trust. It's interesting. It really opens up sort of like an interesting area in life. There's been a lot of people in a million different ways. Trust is an interesting thing because I remember we had our hospitality establishment in between Spring Garden and Cal Hill, and Liberty and Northern Liberties was right above us, right? And next to Northern Liberties is what? The Badlands. So you got these young people coming in, young good people. They don't know where they're at, and they're good people. And they don't realize that it literally 50 yards away. And this is an extreme example, but it's also a life impacting where people trust people because if you're not somebody, if you're a trustworthy person, if you trust, because why wouldn't I trust somebody? You're not thinking that person who is, is going to hurt you in that extreme situation. Many, many young people got at the beginning of that development area got hurt because they didn't know where they were. I feel, it just automatically came up as you guys both talk, getting that education. But the reason why people don't get that education, it just dawned on me. The three of us have done radio shows till the cows come home. But it just dawned on me talking to both of you together. The reason why, one of the biggest mistakes I was going to ask both of you is, and I know the answer, so I might as well just say it, is should you get when should you get educated to understand what the scenarios are? And the answer to that is immediately. You just said it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, especially because we'll have a lot of cases that are, they're injured on the job. So there's the comp component and then there's personal injury component. So we talk to clients all the time and it's like, they feel bad for their employer. Like, they're
not suing their employer.
Yeah, I don't want to go, I didn't want to make a whole thing at work and and puts them in a bad place. And I'm thinking you're sacrificing your health for a company that doesn't care about your health.
And a job that you may never go back to. Yeah. I see it in catastrophically injured cases.
Yeah. And I had a client recently, we signed up, got injured, and he's a smarter guy though. He understood. And so his employer, hey, we're slammed right now. I really need you out there on the roads driving. He said, I can't drive. I can't physically do the deliveries that I have to do. I don't really care. But so many people are afraid to take a stand against their employer, even though physically they can't do the job.
But the ones that aren't afraid probably also trust that, oh, you know what, they seem like a nice person. You know what I mean? Because I'm not, a lot of times, like somebody won't, and this is a strong, and now a kind of an extreme analogy, but if you don't think like a criminal, you may give somebody an opportunity, let them in your car, and next thing you know, well, in this case, because you would never screw somebody over who was injured.
Sure.
You would never think that the person. So when we talk about tactics, right? The friendly adjuster approach, calls immediately after the accident, acts concerned, tries to build trust. Okay.
Tries to settle your case right away. I mean, we have clients all the time. Hey, we'll give you $2,000 right now because
we'll take care of this 3 days you missed from work.
Yeah, we'll pay for the lost time. We'll pay for the bills and all that. And here's $2,500. But you think, great, not realizing that's the end. That's all you're getting.
So I've seen claims where they'll say, and you can call us if there's anything else. I'm like, send me that release. It's just general liability release.
So the other thing is, let's talk about recorded statements, particularly those from individuals who have no idea who they're talking to and the motive of the person that they're talking about. They sound like they're concerned about you and your health, but they have a responsibility to their employer. Well, over and above just getting a recorded statement. Talk about that, Adam.
Oh, that's the other reason when you don't call right away to the attorney's office, you call the insurance company, and you'll make a statement to the other insurance company, the people that are in charge of taking care of everything and paying you out eventually. You're giving them information that they can use. Now, a lot of those adjusters aren't skilled defense attorneys, but they're still asking you certain questions for a certain purpose. And that purpose is not to help you. And so once you have us involved, they're not having that recorded statement because you have no obligation to give it to them. There are certain requirements to give your own insurance company for their own investigation because they are, they're insuring you so that you can cooperate. Sometimes that doesn't have to be a recorded statement. Sometimes, our office can provide that information, which is fine. But once again, that is a huge part of the process of the insurance company getting ready to go to battle and you naively walking into it thinking, oh, this is just part of the process so that they can pay me.
Well, I have it written down right here. This is a routine call.
Oh, yeah. And one of the big things that we have to note as a huge distinction is when you're dealing with a motor vehicle accident case and you have your first party insurance, the insurance that you pay the premium for every month, that insurance company owes you a duty of good faith and fair dealing, right? They have to treat you fairly or you can sue them. Then you have the third party. In our cases, that's typically the striking vehicle, the guy you're going to go after for causing all your damages. They don't owe you anything. They owe their insured the same duty, the guy that's paying the premiums. And when you have these types of claims, there is a different handbook and different adjusters that handle those first party claims where you're having that friendly conversation with, the guy your insurance agent handed you off to versus the third party liability investigator adjuster that's handling that statement. And the questions are different. And it's not that these adjusters may not be experienced and they're not defense attorneys. They're still following a script. I've seen enough discovery and bad faith claims to see that many of these carriers have very, very clear procedure handbooks of, well, if the person says this, you need to ask them about this. And I've heard a number of recorded statements that the questions are slanted. And it's not a huge slant, but it's enough slant that if you don't know what they're really looking for, you may say something inadvertently that potentially sets you up to be cross-examined on what should be a non-issue 2 years from now, that they're going to make some small thing into a huge credibility problem.
Well, it's interesting you say that because justice is an interesting thing. So next point, the victim unknowingly says something that later hurts their claim. Something as and from an insurance claim adjuster's position, it's a calculated ask.
Oh yeah, I mean the big one,
right?
One of the big ones.
How you feeling?
Well, so you get one of these statements, and you give a statement, let's say, to the third party, the striking vehicles insurance company, and they're going to say, "Did you hurt anything?" "Oh, my back's a little sore." Nothing else, right? No, my back's really just hurting right now. But really, you actually have a concussion, and you have on and off night terrors and you're dizzy, but right now you're sitting down in a dark room talking to an insurance adjuster, and so you're feeling okay. But that statement is going to be used against you 2 years from now. So,
or sooner. Sooner. I mean that's all the time with. Well, you didn't mention that to us, and or maybe they want to do a peer review where they have some doctor try to cut you off and say, oh, none of this is related. And they'll use all of these little pieces of information. You didn't complain of it in the hospital. You didn't tell us in the recorded statement. But are you required
to do a recorded statement without an attorney? How does that work?
To a third party, you have no obligation to do anything.
Yeah, you owe them nothing. You can just sue their insured.
I'm talking about to the insurance company when you're being interviewed.
No, you don't have to
say we're recording this.
No. Well, there's two different things, and a lot of people get confused by it. There's one thing when you have that general
first call.
call with any, whether it's an insurance company or most companies nowadays, this call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. That's not what we're talking about. A recorded statement is, I am going to take your statement. Joe Doherty, do I have your permission to record this statement? I do. Okay, can we begin? Yes. And it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more formality to it so that it's not that general line that you hear when you call any corporation nowadays.
Sure.
So let's talk about quick lowball offers, okay? And I imagine somebody who navigates their own case is often not thinking about the consequences that maybe down the road of treatment. And I have told the story 1,000 times. It took a year, 2 years for my wife's disc to blow out. Okay, we couldn't have saw that because she wasn't even feeling injured when we were kids. Okay, then it blew out. Now she's got a plate in her neck for the rest of her entire life. However, if she would have answered that night, that the night or 2 nights afterwards, we would have taken a Snickers bar because we were hungry and we had no idea.
King size,
of course. But okay, It's got nougat and all that stuff, right?
That's great.
But the point is, let's talk about those early, low ball settlement offers. When you get one, Tom, and the workers' comp I know is different. At what point during one of your clients' cases would you get a workers' comp settlement offer?
It can happen at any time. You usually see them after the claim is in litigation and there's been a recent independent medical evaluation or a defense medical evaluation. Or you can see it when someone's been on benefits, usually at hard marks, like at a year, 2 years, 3 years into a claim, and they're just on benefits and the carrier wants to close out a file. And we do see a volume of claims settled sort of towards the end of the fiscal year for most insurance carriers. That's just the calendar year. So the end, Thanksgiving through the new year. But they can settle at any time. And I do get a lot of low ball initial offers. Some of them are ignored. Some of them are countered. Sometimes we just kick the case to mediation and let a judge tell them it's a low ball, ridiculous offer. In our system, most of the lawyers are very experienced. And so usually they will talk to their insurance carrier clients and say, you can't present this offer to this law firm. They're not even going to respond to it.
Yeah, but Tom, I'm not talking about.
So to an injured worker, there is a little extra line of protection in the workers' comp system.
I got you.
So a settlement must be approved by a workers' compensation judge. And that judge is not going to let the defense attorney just grill them at that settlement hearing to force a settlement through. That judge is going to say, now, this $1,500 is for the rest of your life. That means if you need to come back and have a surgery, you can never work again. You have to end up on disability. It does not matter what happens to you. You understand that this $1,500 is all you will ever get for this claim, no matter what happens to you in the future. And that person must say, yes, I understand that. That's what my understanding was at the time I signed this, and I had the opportunity to consult an attorney. And the judge will not approve that settlement unless they answer that way. So you have that little line of protection, whereas I don't let Adam talk about it, but they just send them a release and say, let me take care of those bills for you, sign here.
Have you ever seen anybody try to, and I mean anybody, you've been doing this a long time, have you ever seen somebody try to represent themselves?
Yes. In fact, I was in a couple trial lists many years ago. We used to do trial lists in person. And so you'd have 25 other lawyers in the courtroom with you. And some poor guy was going to settle his case for, I think it was $2,500 or $3,000.
Somebody jump in front of that guy, please.
And it was very, very clear that he did not quite understand what he was doing. And I won't name the judge, but the judge basically stopped the hearing and said, I want you to go back out in that waiting room and go find yourself a lawyer. There's some really excellent lawyers here, and have one of them read this agreement and explain it to you. And that case wasn't recalled. It was relisted. And I'll bet you that guy got a whole heck of a lot more money.
It's such a complicated area of the law that personal injury attorneys, and I know, Adam, your father used to do work comp and you guys do PI now, but I'm just saying very few people that have ever done anything but work comp or any other area, stay away from work comp. So it's very difficult for attorneys who don't specialize in it, let alone somebody else. in your world, Adam, when do you get the insulting offers? At what point is a normal time where you're thinking, okay?
Well, there's certain insurance companies that will always give you a lowball offer, and you can always count on them for that. So they're very generous in that regard.
Consistent, right?
Yeah, and consistent. So it depends. I mean, sometimes you get them and it's just the opening offer, and then we move a little bit, and then suddenly you find out how much money they really have, and then then you're cutting through the BS and you're getting to where you can actually go. And sometimes you get pleasantly surprised, and there's an opening offer and it's not a bad offer. It's really kind of close to where the value is. But the problem is the insurance companies, the higher ups there, demand of their adjusters and their attorneys that they play this ridiculous game. And so we'll have attorneys call us and say, like, all right, yeah, Tom, I'm going to give you this $15,000 offer. You're going to tell me to go to hell. Then I'm going to tell you 25, and then you're going to tell me to go to hell. And then we're going to do all that. I'm going to call you back. What's today? Tuesday. All right. I'm going to call you back Friday, and we're going to settle it for $50K. And I'm going to tell the adjuster or the higher ups that we had this whole back and forth. They don't want to do it.
Those are the really good, usually in-house lawyers for insurance company. We see that in comp, and it is much appreciated. And they save their clients a lot of money, because if somebody really wants to jerk me around and do that bounce back and forth BS offers, you're going to piss off my client, and they're going to end up wanting more than the case is worth just because they're angry.
Yeah. Are often.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say my father does a lot of the settlement in the office, and he's really good at it. And a lot of times he'll say that, and it's like, I can't. All right, you want to give me that 15? I can't go to my client with that, because I'm gonna lose control. They're gonna go bonkers. So give me, how about I say it's 35K. They don't go crazy and they don't go ballistic, and then we'll get it settled at the end of the week.
But they
don't want to waste a lot of these adjusters and attorneys. They don't want to waste time doing this whole back and forth song and dance. What do you have? What will you settle for? What can I actually get? Where can we meet in the middle? Sometimes you can.
Have either one of you ever somebody have given you such an insulting offer that you actually said, like, you're insulting my experience, for crying out loud?
I don't typically do that, because usually, even when the attorney is sending an insulting offer, like I got one yesterday in a case where the first line of the email, and Adam's going to nod his head in a minute, my client has instructed me to offer. You know that lawyer does not agree with whatever follows that, right? And then the second line is, here's my cell phone number if you have any questions. You know that we settled that case yesterday for the right amount of money, that, he asked for that amount of money. It's the same value I gave my client 6 months ago on this case, but it took that long to get the carrier on board.
Yeah. No,
but let me tell you one thing about insulting offers. I had a case about a year ago where a guy was owed a closed period of workers' comp benefits for a shoulder injury. Guy gets a very clear injury. Claim is denied because it's just an outrageous employer that denies pretty much everything. He goes out of work. He has the surgery. The surgery is done by a company-approved doctor, which doesn't happen very often. Usually the surgeon's is somebody else, but this was actually the company surgeon. He then goes back to work. He is owed a total of $15,000 in workers' comp benefits for the time that he was out for the surgery. They litigate this thing up to mediation. They come to mediation with, I think, $7,500. And we're going back and forth. And the mediator's saying, why don't you just pay the closed period? It's going to cost you more in attorney's fees and costs to take this case to decision, to then lose it. And oh, by the way, you're probably going to be assessed my attorney's fee because of the way the fee shifting provisions of the act work. And they came up to, I think, $10,000. My client said, you know what? Screw them. I want a decision. I don't care if they offer me the full 15. I don't care. Take it to decision. We tried that case. Before we got the decision, the defense attorney picks up the phone and calls me. And this guy has been belligerent the entire case because he plays the insurance company game. Now He's, up a creek without a paddle and is saying, I got you the 15 and I might even be able to get you 17.5, get your client on board. And I called my client and said, what do you want to do? He said, screw him. Don't even reply to him. That case went to decision. We got the 15 grand. They got whacked with $12,000 in cancel fees, and they had to pay 2 years worth of interest on all of that, plus the medical bills, all because their lawyer and that insurance company was absolutely unreasonable at mediation and pissed off my client.
I mean, and that makes sense. I can only imagine being a fly on the wall with it. Before we go to break, because I know we're going to take a quick break, how often are these lowball settlement offers before somebody gets an MRI? Obviously before they get surgery recommendations or long-term symptoms actually develop.
You're looking at me, but this is more of an Adam question. It does not happen very often in comp. It's exceedingly rare because of the judges. The judge is going to grill them, and then they're going to go hire a lawyer.
In your world, Adam,
as far as how often we get them?
Well, the point is, how often does an insurance company want to get in there and make an offer before you get the MRIs, before you get surgery recommendations, or before they develop long-term symptoms that,
if they're still treating and you have a big enough insurance policy on the other end, you can't entertain settlement discussions.
Because you don't know where.
Right. If they have a $15,000 policy and that's all they have and that's all they're ever going to have, and they want to cough it up and tender it, great. We don't need to pursue that any longer because we're just going to waste time on it. We'll get that. But if it's, hey, we have a $250,000 policy and we're trying to settle it for 10 or 15 and my client's still getting treatment, needs an MRI, needs a surgical consult, how am I doing my client any favor? Yeah, I can get you money now, but it's a fraction of what the case is worth.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, pay some bills. We're going to have more from the McMenamin and Wing Show in just a minute. All right, welcome back to the Wing and McMenamin Show, or should I say the McMenamin and the Wing Show? Since Roger's in the house, we don't want to tick him off, but shout out to Roger McMenamin, of course. We're talking about some of the tactics that insurance companies, create when it comes to injured workers and personal injury victims. Also, some of the mistakes individuals make. But one of those tactics is social media surveillance. Okay, insurance companies routinely look at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, even innocent photos, they might even use as part of their, defense on trying to shut the individual who may be very injured down. A lot of their defense is they don't appear to be injured. Okay. How often does that happen in work comp, Tom?
It's really inexpensive to hire one of these companies to just do a social media search because it's all automated now. A computer system, you put in somebody's name, date of birth, known phone number, and they'll just run a search, let it sit for a couple minutes, and it'll just come back with everything that's publicly available. So we see it. Probably about 10% of claims we'll see a social media dump. It's probably happening in more claims than we're aware of because we are relying on the insurance company to give all available discovery, which is documents I'm entitled to see as part of the case from the other side, to their lawyer to give to me. And I'm sure it's not 100% compliance, but it is used fairly frequently in workers' comp.
How about personal injury, Adam?
It's definitely used. As I was saying when we were off air, I have a client that called our office a couple weeks ago and they noticed a car following them and all of that. And that was the old school traditional surveillance of hiring a private investigator to follow you. But as Tom pointed out, it's a lot easier, it's a lot quicker, and it's a lot cheaper to do a social media search. And so something that you used to have to pay a PI to do for thousands of dollars, now you can do for maybe 100 or so, and you get tons of stuff.
Well, I heard, even if, for example, there's a picture on, on your social media, and listen, we all know that, hey, you're in a swimming pool, or you dove into the swimming pool, you're hurt, you are hurt, but okay, you dove in, but I heard that at one point, if it's up and it's on there, you're not allowed to take it off, or you're not allowed to shut the page down. Is that true?
Yes.
You can't delete, because then it's considered what's called spoliation of evidence. Think of spoliation, spoil. You're getting rid of, you're destroying evidence. So, but what you can do is make your page private, which you should be doing. And when I meet with clients, I'll go over, do you have Facebook? Do you have Instagram? Do you have TikTok? What do you have? Make sure your account is private. There's no requirement that it's public, but something as simple as you're out to dinner with friends or with family and you take a nice picture with everyone so everyone can remember the night. And then you have a defense attorney, if it makes it to litigation. Were you in pain during this picture when you're at dinner with your family? How about this picture when you went to the swimming pool with your family? Were you in pain that time too, where you were smiling? How about this next photo where you're smiling? Were you in pain then? Right? And they're just eating you alive for doing something. I just took a picture at dinner. What was the big deal?
What do you do strategically at that point? Because your client can't do anything, because the answer might be, yes, I'm in pain, but I'm going to smile with my granddaughter if I want. But how do you defend that?
So the smart defense lawyer is going to get that answer, because you're going to prepare your client for that, right? The smart defense lawyer is going to take it one step further. So they're not just going to say, well, were you in pain where you're smiling, look like you're having the time of your life at your grandmother's birthday? How long was that party? Doesn't look like there are a lot of chairs there. Looks like you're at, some park or something. How long were you on your feet for? You told X doctor you could only stand for 20 minutes at a time. How long were you standing for this? And you don't know how long you were standing at a party you went to 2 years ago by the time you're sitting for this deposition. It's all about creating credibility problems. They'll take it even further than that, when they'll take that transcript from your testimony and all those photos, and now a lot of times videos, you have Instagram reels and things, and you'll have somebody singing happy birthday, and now you're jumping up and down and clapping and cheering for 30 seconds. Doesn't show that you're miserably in pain when you got home and you really toughed it out for, grandma's 90th birthday. But they'll give all of that data and your deposition transcript to their doctor for the IME. And then that doctor is going to grill you about it and is going to testify, oh, well, from a medical standpoint, they appear totally fine. And they do that with all kinds of surveillance. We see that all the time.
Same thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's something where I have to tell clients, just don't put anything up, right? That's the education part of when you're meeting with the client, because there's going to be things that, well, in a year when I'm feeling better, why can't no? And not only that, but okay, your page is private, but your friend's page is public, and they tag you and they can find it that way. So you need to just lay off social media. You want to share an article about something that you're passionate about, have fun. But when you start putting up photos, videos,
they're going to twist and turn.
They're going to use everything that they can find against you. And then, just like Tom said, feed it to the expert. And now it's a medical expert saying he can't possibly be injured, or she can't possibly be injured like that, because look what she was doing here.
So we talked about social media surveillance, and we've touched on regular surveillance. Let's get into the regular surveillance, because when in both of your cases can somebody expect regular surveillance? An auto accident victim, Adam, how soon, or what is the point where surveillance happens, and when's the earliest you've ever seen it?
Yeah, I mean, generally it's more in the litigation side, and all my files are in litigation, and so we see that.
When you're in court, is that
once you filed a lawsuit, it's not just a claim, and it's a little more significant. I met a client before what they call as independent medical exams, what we call defense medical exams, and I realized the private investigators in the parking lot watching my client go into the medical appointment that they scheduled for them, right? So they know exactly when they're going to be there, because they said, hey, you're going to see Dr. Smith, Wednesday at 1:00. So they get their guy there 12:30. And I've told clients many times over the years, you see a car following you, call the police on them. if this person's in your neighborhood, call the police. They don't have a right to harass you, to stalk you, because if someone else was doing that, they would be stalking you and the police would get involved. And so an insurance company doesn't magically get permission to do those things. So have them do that. The other part is don't do anything in public that your doctor says not to do. Don't do anything in private your doctor says not to do.
What if you live...
and getting people in that mentality of I'm not trying to tell you to hide that, I'm telling you to not do it, and certainly don't get caught doing it, because we had a case a few years ago now, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars less because the deposition said I can't lift anything. Can you lift a napkin? Can you lift? I mean, they'll go on and on. Okay, you can't do a gallon of milk. Can you do half a gallon of milk? Can you do a bottle of soda? Can you do a napkin? I mean, they'll go on and on and on and on. Oh, no, I can't do it. And then they get surveillance of my client unloading like a huge thing of laundry detergent, not like the little guys, huge container.
A big Tide box.
Yeah, not an 8-pound gallon of milk, like 12, 13 pounds. And then that was the day after.
What if somebody's this?
That's the credibility
and that's the
issue.
credibility. You're lying.
Right.
Even if you're not lying, even if that was the worst pain day of your life because your husband wasn't around and you had to be the one to carry that in because you had to make sure that your kids' school uniform was ready for tomorrow. Like, it doesn't matter what the story is at that point because you categorically said, I can't lift anything.
Correct. Instead of saying, most of the time I don't do it. My spouse does it. My kids do it. Every now and then, if no one's around, I have to do it. And then I'm in pain and I need to. Had they said that, then it's fine.
And this is, by the way, ties us right back to those recorded statements. That's what they're locking in. Those negative statements that are just like, I can't ever do this.
Those
I
absolutes.
always do this.
Yeah.
Any absolute that you can pick apart later is a credibility problem for a jury.
Wouldn't an appropriate answer be if somebody's hurt, I can't do anything without, hold on.
No, I've gotten that one. I can't do anything.
No. What I'm saying is,
that's my fave.
No, I can't move without being in pain. Sure. I can move and almost do everything, but I can't do it pain-free if they are in that situation. Is that a true statement?
Yeah. So in a personal injury case, when you have a deposition,
that sounds like
the end of your deposition usually ends in a very similar fashion when they've already talked about how this accident happened. However, whether it's a car accident, slip and fall, that's out of the way. We've talked about your injuries. We've talked about the treatment. We've talked about maybe your prior injuries. And then they get to the impact. Name things that you cannot do at all or could not do for some period of time at all. And then talk about things that you could do, but you do with pain, or you change the way you do it, or you don't do it as much.
Wow.
Right? And so that's a great way to say, all right, yes, I can do that. I still have to cook, still have to do some cleaning around the house. I'm in pain. I have to take a break in the middle of cooking, sit down. My back is on fire. Sure. I can't carry the heavy pot. So I try to do a smaller pot or get someone to help. And that's when you can get into the nuance. People speak and it's like hyperbolic. It's these absolutes of I never, or I always, and that's where you get in trouble. You have to be nuanced with your language. And that's what we talk to clients about ahead of time. Make sure you were clear. If you can do that, say you can do it. You can tell them that you're in pain, and you should tell them because they're asking you for that. Yeah. But be clear. Don't just speak in absolutes.
I mean, I know
because that's when you're doing yourself a disservice and taking money out of your own
personally
pocket.
They can move and they can do those things, but not without being in pain.
Yeah, but what Adam is saying versus the example you gave, your example is the wrong way to answer that question. And in the prep, and it sounds like Adam does too, I grill my clients when we're preparing. The direct is not usually that big of a deal when I'm the one asking questions. A cross in a deposition is a whole nother ballgame. So I want to grill that person to catch those absolutes of like, I can't do anything without pain. Anything? Then it leads to the napkin example or changing a remote with the TV. It's like, so you're saying you're in catastrophically disabling pain at every moment of every day, no matter what you do or don't do.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get locked into that, or that's the logical conclusion to any answer, you're done. There's
Over.
somewhere, unless you're eating out of a tube, somewhere you are exaggerating, or it's going to look like you're exaggerating.
So let's talk about using financial pressure, a tactic that is and we're on this is the McMenamin and Wing show here on WWDB Talk 860. Tom Wing, our host, is in the house. Of course, Adam Flager of Flager Law is our guest. And we're talking about the tactics that insurance companies use. This seems to be a familiar one. And a lot, really, when I think about the mental approach here, but, using financial tactics or delay tactics to create financial pressure. In your situation, denying a claim, Tom, when somebody
Deny, delay, defend.
smoke somebody out so that they got to go to work no matter what, because they got a choice. Their little boy either eats or doesn't eat, and you're back. It's either you're back or then. And in your world, Adam, these things, workers' compensation is a shorter process, even though I would say that if I had financial pressure on me, I don't know if the word short is relative, 9 months, but in your world, it can be 2 years. Okay. And I imagine that you deal with some people in your life, in your world, that get stressed out incredibly. And these insurance companies are potentially dragging their feet. And the thought process that somebody's like, I haven't heard from anybody in 7 months, right? Just to create more financial pressure, smoke them out, and in a sense, drive them crazy. Is that a scenario that is
the longer they don't settle a case, the longer they have their money making them money, right? Well, invested in making interest, all of that. So if they can pay you $15,000 today, but they can also pay you $15,000 in 6 months, they're going to pay you it in 6 months. And so that's when you need a firm that's not going to just let them delay, staying on top of them, whether it's papering the file to make a potential bad faith claim, all of these different ways that you can try to put pressure on the insurance company so that they can't just do that. They can't just, drag their feet ad nauseum. They have to come to the plate and try to settle that case, because they know if a client isn't working, right? If our clients aren't working, they're made aware of that because they need to know the severity of the injuries, the impact those injuries are having. All right, this person's really desperate probably because they haven't worked in 6 months when that accident happened. So they might take a little bit less money because they just need something. And so then I have to tell them, no, your case is actually worth a lot more than that. This is some crappy offer that they're lowballing you on it because they think that you're desperate for money.
What about emotional stress due to those situations? Have you ever got, and I know one of the great things about both of your firms is the ability to be able to, empathize and look at the whole situation with a person. But have both of you ever gotten situations, obviously Tom, workers' comp, and Adam, personal injury, where the stress of the situation impacted somebody so that you thought they may need some emotional support, and B, you got worried in the fact that you didn't know if they were going to make it.
Yes, and yes. I've had clients have mental health crises. I've had clients need to go into institutions for inpatient treatment. Yes. What you have to understand about what someone goes through mentally when they have a work injury is they are being torn out of the one thing they spend most of their waking time doing for most of their adult life.
And it's a big part of their identity.
Exactly. Especially for men. I don't want to be, and this is not like a gender thing, but men, at least the research says, identify much more with what their job is. And if you think about people who you're just friendly with, it's like, oh yeah, that guy's a lawyer, that guy's a plumber, that guy's a doctor, that guy works at...
Especially old school guys, like, it's all we got.
Right. And that's what you're talking to your friends about. You're talking shop, right? And so when that part of your identity is affected, and oh, by the way, you're going to have financial pressure, because even if you're receiving workers' comp benefits, what if those checks aren't on time?
Yeah.
Your mortgage isn't going to say, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Just get us next month."
Yeah.
Neither
And
is
the
your light
insurance
bill.
company knows that, right?
They know that, and they don't care. We have
Well, they do care for the wrong reasons,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Because they're trying to screw you.
Yeah, I had one. I had one over the weekend. We had to file a penalty petition for a check that needed to go into a client's account on a Friday. It's due on Friday. It came on Monday. But the banks that are auto debiting things out of this person's account, they don't care. A bounced check or a bounced auto debit is still going to end up with an additional charge, and now their stuff is late. And God forbid some of it ends up on their credit bureau file. These insurance companies don't care, but now they're going to have to go hire a lawyer to explain to a judge why they couldn't push a button on a direct deposit or put it on auto pay, because they do have auto pay for these things, and just pay the guy. And, when we reached out to the carrier just says to us, "Oh, well, we're waiting for a light duty note." Well, on a compensable workers' comp claim, that's not legal. You aren't entitled to anything. You have to pay. You want something else? Go get an IME. They get an IME every 6 months. So, yeah, we see it absolutely all the time. And a lot of times the insurance companies will make that pressure worse to try to leverage a settlement. And part of our job is to mitigate that as much as possible.
Adam, in your world, when it comes to, these types of stressful situations, how do you handle them, and how often do you see delays, to the detriment of your client?
Sure. It's the same insurance companies doing the same crap, whether it's comp or PI. So we all get it, unfortunately. And you have to do everything that you can, right? If you're the law firm that's constantly going after these insurance companies, constantly calling, making claims, not afraid to go to court, then they know that some of those tricks and tactics don't work on you the way they may work on someone else. So having that reputation that you don't take their crap, you're not playing that game, and okay, you want to screw around, we're gonna go to court, we're gonna proceed, and we're gonna beat you.
And so getting aggressive back.
Yeah, correct. You have to stay on them. The adjuster's not calling you back. All right, now I'm calling the supervisor. And now the supervisor's wondering why their adjuster's not getting back to people. Why do I have to get dragged into this?
Do the adjusters, how do they treat the attorneys?
Mixed bag.
Yeah, it really depends on the person. I mean, there's people my dad knows from like 30 years ago, and they're still doing it, and he's still doing it, and they can get cases settled all the time. Sometimes it's those same people, and it's like, yeah, they don't give me the same authority anymore. And so, yes, I want to get it settled, and I want to get it settled for the amount we both think it's worth, but I can't. So and then some people are just, especially some of the younger ones, they drink the Kool-Aid. They believe all the lines. How many times have we heard, "Oh yeah, we've been really successful at trial lately."
Really, your client overtreated.
Yeah.
How many times you heard overtreated this
and
week?
I go,
like, you're a doctor now?
Yeah, there are doctors and lawyers. I go, wow, that's so weird, because I thought you were an adjuster, but apparently you try cases in court. So that's incredible for you. What are you doing adjusting claims when you're clearly a trial lawyer? So it's all scripted, right? And we know it's scripted. And so as long as you know that, but you got to be upfront with clients, explain the process, explain that, yes, there are some limitations to just how much we can push it. And setting those realistic expectations, explaining that process to them. Those are all important parts as well.
Is there value, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but is there value in a mental claim, in a mental portion of a claim? In other words, say somebody.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
the answer is yes. They are difficult claims to prove. It depends what caused the onset of the mental claim. If there's some physical injury that results in a mental claim, they're a lot easier to prove. And there's also a separate carve out for first responders, police officers, firemen. But yes, and a lot of times it's really important for that injured person, because if you don't get them that care right away, they could be looking at a lifetime of problems.
Yeah.
How about your world?
Yeah, they need to treat for it, just like an orthopedic injury. It can get a little complicated if they've already been treating for something previously. and now they're doing this, and it can muddy the waters. But if they weren't treating with a mental health professional and suddenly they have this traumatic accident, whether it's a car accident or whatever, they need to treat for it, and that's part of the claim.
All right. We've come to the conclusion of the fastest hour in radio. Adam, if you will, if somebody wants to get in contact.
Sure. Adam Flager, Flager Law, personal injury lawyers in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, 215-953-5200, FlagerLaw.com. That's F as in Frank, LAGERLAW.com.
Fantastic. Tom Wing, our host.
My name's Tom Wing. We do workers' comp statewide here in Pennsylvania, workerscompadvocates.com.
All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the McMenamin and Wing Show here on WWDB Talk 860. I want to thank our host, Tom Wing, and our guest, Adam Flager, and of course, our producer, Matt Dietz. On behalf of everybody on the panel, I'm Joe Doherty. Thanks for listening, everybody.